and Ashish unfortunately had a flight to catch very shortly after his speech, but he was kind enough to spend about 10 minutes recording a video, which we will play next. Ashish Dhawan is the founder of the Convergence Foundation, and he's going to talk about building and shaping philanthropic institutions. After the video, which you will see on the two screens to my left and my right, we will come back to our agenda for this session, which will include the panel discussion that should be showing up next on your screens and in your agenda booklets. So just a quick introduction to Ashish. Ashish Dhawan has worked for 20 years in the investment business and also ran India's leading private equity fund, Chris Capital. He has been recognized by Forbes India as the next-gen leader in philanthropy for his great initiative towards education. And you will see in the video that has been recorded that Ashish connects the dots extremely well between philanthropy and a wide range of other things. So I'm delighted to present to you Ashish Dhawan.
I couldn't do this in person. I had a flight to Bombay. I want to just start by congratulating Indiaspora. It's an amazing initiative, and congrats on 10 years. I myself had spent my formative years in the US, went there for college, business school, worked there, came back to India almost 25 years ago. India's GDP at that point was about $450 billion. Now we're at $3 trillion, at India at 75. So in the last 25 years, we've grown over 6 times. And I think we can do even better than that in the next 25 years. Our Prime Minister has egged us all on to do whatever it takes to build a much larger economy, but also a more inclusive and sustainable economy. I believe that philanthropy can play an important role in the next 25 years in shaping India at 100. Firstly, I think there's going to be a tsunami of philanthropy in the coming years. The US went through its moment 100 years ago, what I call the Carnegie-Rockefeller moment, where the two eminent industrialists of the robber baron era, Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, made amazing investments in philanthropy. They built institutions, the University of Chicago, Rockefeller University, Carnegie Mellon University, solved problems at scale, yellow fever, eliminating that, and setting up many other institutions that endure and even exist today. I think India had its moment very recently, in the recent past, when Mr. Premji made a huge contribution, and Nandan Nilekani. So these are the Carnegie and Rockefeller of India, is the way I look at it. And I believe the same way as you saw in the US, after Carnegie and Rockefeller, every rich person said, I want to have a foundation, I want to make a meaningful contribution. The same thing is going to happen. I think wealthy people, particularly first generation wealthy people, are going to not just leave it for their kids, but actually want to do something for the country. Having said that, I do think we are faced with some challenges. What are the challenges? Number one, I think that philanthropists are often quite skeptical. They're skeptical because they don't understand the NGO sector. There is mistrust. They believe that their money won't be well spent. They believe that they won't get impact. And I think it's our job, all of us working together, to ensure that philanthropists get to see good work, get to discover good NGOs, and develop the confidence that actually they should be giving away more, they should be doing it sooner, and because their money is not going to be wasted. So we have to get rid of the skepticism. Two is, philanthropists tend to be somewhat parochial. I think it's quite natural. If you've grown up in a particular area, you want to give back to the area, and that's fine. But I think if we're going to think about India at 100, we have to think much bigger. We have to look at solving these complex problems at scale to see how we can make India a better place, not just our village. And even, I would say, if you work at the village level, one of the challenges is some of the structures that influence the village scheme are actually at the state level, at the national level. And so you can't sometimes change a village school without changing the curriculum or changing the recruitment that is taking. So be less parochial, think bigger, think at scale. And I think the third one is too much of our work has been programmatic. We tend to do things where it's over 5 years, 10 years, program, project oriented. And I'll give you one example. In education where I work, we have hundreds of thousands of NGOs doing work in education. And they are good organizations. But if you look at the track record over the last 15, 20 years, it's actually very poor. And I include myself because I work in school education as well. Why do I say it's poor? Because if you look at the outcomes, in terms of learning outcomes, we really haven't turned the needle in the last 15 years. The USR survey shows that, the National Teaching Survey shows that. So it begs the question as to why. And my hypothesis is because the work is programmatic and it doesn't feed into overall system change. So if that's the case, what is the new role of philanthropy? What could philanthropy do differently? Firstly, I think the big advantages of philanthropy are that it's risky capital. It can be bold and audacious. It is long-term. It doesn't need to think like government in myopic 5-year stints. It can think about solving problems over 10 years, 20 years, much longer term. And it really is one that is evidence-based. You can choose to prioritize certain areas and only do it based on evidence. And you in the US know the Gates Foundation. I think Bill Gates is someone who embodies all of that, being very evidence-driven, long-term oriented, making some risky bets. And I think we need to learn from institutions like the Gates Foundation here in India as well. And I think as business people, it appeals to us because at the end of the day, we want high ROI on our philanthropic capital, return on investment, but also high ROE, not return on equity, but return on effort. There's a finite amount of time we have, bandwidth, and we want to get the most bang for the time that we're putting in, which means we need to prioritize. So I think there are 4 things in particular that philanthropy could do differently that would change India and India. One is philanthropists can build institutions. I've had the personal experience of working with many others to build Ashoka University. It's possible to build institutions, new institutions. We have 200 plus founders and donors at Ashoka. It shows that you can do it in a collaborative fashion. You don't have to do it alone. And I see a change now where, even at the IITs, there are development offices, alumni are coming, giving back, they want to change the IITs. It's happening at the IIMs. There are new universities that have come up. I think we need the same support for building knowledge institutions like think tanks. It's pity that if you go to our states, a large state like UP, there is no major institution to serve the state, whether it's with economic policy or even a leading university, a leading research lab, etc. So I think there's a huge opportunity to build institutions at the state level, at the national level of all types. A second, beyond looking at institutions, is to look at how we can work on system change, on system reform. So as opposed to trying to solve education in one small area, how can we look at improving foundational numeracy and literacy across the country over the next 10, 15 years and do it at scale? And the way to do that, my belief, is to first start at small scale, build the evidence, do the R&D work. Government can't do that. Show that it's possible. Then find a way to go and advocate for it. Because government has the big dollars, the big money. In education, government spends over 7 lakh crore, 5 lakh crore on school education. So our money is a drop in the bucket. So we need to make government do the right things. So once you build the evidence, show that it works, find a way to embed it within government, sell the idea, advocate for it. But that's not enough. I think one then needs to work on policy implementation. So an example is we at Central Square Foundation did this for foundational literacy and numeracy. Now we work in 12 states helping implement Nipun Bharat, which is the government's India's big mission around foundational literacy and numeracy. And I think foundations are starting to do this. I see the Tata Trust or Piramal Foundation, many other foundations start to do system reform work in partnership with government. A third opportunity is to make government more effective. If government is the big actor in development, then it behooves upon us to think about how government can do it differently. And here I give a lot of credit to Nandan Nilekani, who I think is India's greatest philanthropist, where he has really thought differently, whether it's building the initial building block of Aadhaar and then UPI. I mean, UPI has led to greater financial inclusion than almost anything in India, or Aadhaar, which led to Jan Dhan. So I think thinking about it differently in terms of how we can make government more effective. Because government is the big actor. It spends the most money, and if we can make government more effective, India will prosper. The private sector has moved far ahead in the last 25 years, government hasn't. But in the next 25 years, government needs to keep pace with the private sector in order for us to prosper. And philanthropists can play some role. The fourth and last area, I'll say, is a somewhat controversial one. Is most philanthropists think their job is to work on human rights, on development, social justice, solving inequity. But I actually think philanthropists can play a big role in driving economic growth. I think the traditional belief is that economic growth is the domain of markets, of business, and government who plays the role of a coordinator, facilitator, defines policies, etc. I think philanthropy should participate. Philanthropists can play a role in shaping some of those policies because we are neutral. Unlike business that's always lobbying, I think philanthropists can stand on a plank that is much more credible to contribute towards economic growth. And the reason I say economic growth is important, because at the end of the day, if India can go from 3 trillion now to becoming a $30 trillion economy when India is at 100, that is really what will make the big difference. That is what will solve our problems of poverty, education, health, everything with one fell swoop. At the end of the day, China didn't lift 800 million people out of poverty through the NGO sector. It did it through economic growth. And I think philanthropists, are business people. And they understand the problems with business, the ease of doing business, what some of the priorities need to be. And they need to contribute in a philanthropic capacity as well towards India's economy. So those, in my view, are the 4 areas, the insights that I have, in which we can do it differently. So just to sum up, there's going to be a tsunami of philanthropic capital coming in. I think people are going to give money sooner. They're going to give more. The real question is, can they do it better? Can they do it more effectively? I've given you 4 of my thoughts, and I really hope that not only Indians in India, but Indians from the diaspora, led by Indiaspora, can make this happen for India. Thank you.